In the heart of the Arabian Peninsula, over 1,000 years ago, a new chapter in human history was about to unfold. The land was a patchwork of deserts and oases, inhabited by fiercely independent tribes with their own customs, gods, and blood feuds. Mecca, a bustling trade city nestled among the rocky hills, was a spiritual hub filled with shrines to countless deities. At the center stood the Kaaba, revered for generations, but surrounded by idols that reflected the polytheistic beliefs of the time. It was a world teetering between tribal loyalty and spiritual longing, between ancient traditions and the potential for something greater. The Byzantine and Sassanid empires loomed to the north, locked in perpetual conflict, while Arabia remained mostly outside the reach of these great powers. The people of the peninsula were traders, poets, warriors, and storytellers. But amidst all this, a deeper hunger stirred, a yearning for truth, unity, and meaning. Into this world, in the year 570 CE, a child named Muhammad was born. Orphaned at a young age, he grew up under the care of his grandfather and then his uncle, learning the ways of trade and travel. Known for his honesty and calm nature, he earned the nickname Al-Amin, the trustworthy. By his 30s, he had become a successful merchant, married to a respected businesswoman named Khadijah. Yet despite his worldly success, Muhammad often withdrew into solitude, seeking clarity in the quiet of the mountains. He was troubled by the inequality, corruption, and spiritual emptiness he saw around him. It was during one of these retreats, in the darkness of the cave of Hijra, that everything changed. A voice broke the silence, commanding him to read. He was terrified, overwhelmed by the weight of the words. But in that moment, the first revelation of what would become the Quran had been delivered. A spark had been lit in the desert, one that would grow to illuminate the lives of billions. Muhammad's life transformed dramatically after that first revelation in the cave of Hira. What began as a deeply personal spiritual experience soon became a mission that would change the course of history. The message he received was simple yet revolutionary. There is only one God, Allah, and all people must submit to Him. This concept of strict monotheism was a radical departure from the polytheistic practices of Mecca and the wider Arabian Peninsula. Muhammad began sharing these revelations with his closest family and friends. His wife Khadijah was his first and most steadfast supporter, encouraging him to continue despite the growing opposition. Gradually, a small community of followers formed, drawn by the promise of justice, mercy, and a direct connection to God. This community, known as the Ummah, was not defined by tribe or lineage, but by faith. The leaders of Mecca, especially the Quraysh tribe, who controlled the city and its trade routes, saw Muhammad's teachings as a threat. His call to reject idols and abandon traditional gods challenged their authority and economic power. The Kaaba was central to their influence, drawing pilgrims and wealth from across Arabia because of the idols housed within. To them, Muhammad's message was dangerous and divisive. Opposition soon escalated into open persecution. Followers of Muhammad faced social boycott, torture, and exile. Some were forced to hide their faith, while others fled to neighboring lands seeking refuge. Despite these hardships, Muhammad remained patient and resolute, preaching compassion and forgiveness even toward his enemies. In 622 CE, facing increasing hostility, Muhammad and his followers undertook a daring journey known as the Hijra, or migration, to the city of Yathrib, later renamed Medina, meaning the city of the Prophet. This event marks the beginning of the Islamic calendar and symbolizes the birth of a new social and political order based on faith rather than blood ties. Medina welcomed Muhammad as a leader and peacemaker. There, he established the Constitution of Medina, a pioneering document that created a pluralistic society where Muslims, Jews, and other tribes could coexist with mutual rights and responsibilities. This early Islamic state was a community united by shared values of justice, solidarity, and submission to God. But peace was fragile. The Meccan leaders saw the growing strength of Muhammad's followers as a challenge that could not be ignored. Battles erupted, including the Battle of Badr, where the vastly outnumbered Muslims won a surprising victory. This was followed by the Battle of Uhud and the Battle of the Trench, both fierce conflicts that tested the resilience of the young Muslim community. Despite the bloodshed, Muhammad continued to preach reconciliation. The Treaty of Hudaybiyah in 628 CE was a landmark agreement between Muslims and Quraysh, allowing peaceful pilgrimage to Mecca and opening the door for further expansion of Islam through diplomacy and example rather than force. 2 years later, in 630 CE, Muhammad and his followers peacefully conquered Mecca. The idols were removed from the Kaaba, reaffirming it as a sacred site dedicated to the worship of one God. The conquest was largely bloodless and marked a turning point, uniting the Arabian Peninsula under Islam. Muhammad spent his final years consolidating the faith, encouraging justice, charity, and equality among his followers. His farewell sermon laid out principles of human dignity and rights that remain powerful to this day. He passed away in 632 CE at the age of 63, leaving behind a community united by faith, but facing the enormous task of defining its future. Muhammad's life is not just a story of a man, but of a transformative spiritual revolution that reshaped societies and cultures. His example of humility, perseverance, and devotion continues to inspire millions worldwide. From a quiet cave in the desert, a message of unity and peace began that would ripple across centuries and continents. After the passing of Prophet Muhammad in 632 CE, the Muslim community faced a critical moment of transition. The question on everyone's mind was who would lead the rapidly growing Islamic State and continue Muhammad's mission. This period that followed is known as the Rashidun Caliphate, meaning the era of the rightly guided caliphs. It was a time of both tremendous opportunity and great challenges, as the young Muslim Ummah had to navigate political, military, and social complexities while staying true to the core principles taught by Muhammad. The first caliph to take leadership was Abu Bakr, one of Muhammad's closest companions and earliest supporters. His main task was to maintain unity within the community. Several tribes had begun to question their allegiance after Muhammad's death, leading to what became known as the Ridda Wars, or Wars of Apostasy. Abu Bakr's decisive leadership crushed these rebellions and reaffirmed the unity of Arabia under Islam. Under his guidance, the state began to consolidate its power and establish order. Following Abu Bakr's death in 634 CE, Umar ibn al-Khattab became the second caliph. Umar was known for his strong and just rule. He expanded the Islamic Empire far beyond the Arabian Peninsula. Within just a decade, Muslim armies had conquered vast territories, including the rich lands of the Persian Sassanid Empire and large parts of the Byzantine Empire in Syria and Egypt. These conquests were not just military victories. They brought new cultures, languages, and ideas into contact with Islamic civilization. Umar's leadership was marked by administrative reforms and the establishment of welfare systems, judicial courts, and public infrastructure. The third caliph, Uthman ibn Affan, continued this expansion but faced internal dissent and controversy. Uthman is remembered for commissioning the compilation of the Quran into a single, standardized text, a critical step for preserving the integrity of Islamic teachings. However, his rule was marred by accusations of nepotism and favoritism, which eventually led to unrest. This unrest culminated in Uthman's assassination in 656 CE, a moment that plunged the community into crisis. Ali ibn Abi Talib, the Prophet's cousin and son-in-law, became the fourth caliph amid growing divisions. His leadership was challenged by powerful factions, leading to the first major civil war in Islamic history, known as the First Fitna. Battles such as the Battle of the Camel and the Battle of Siffin divided the Muslim community politically and spiritually. The conflict exposed deep tensions over issues of legitimacy and justice. A particularly tragic chapter unfolded with the martyrdom of Ali's son, Husayn. At the Battle of Karbala in 680 CE, Hussein's death became a defining moment for Shia Muslims and symbolizes the struggle against oppression and tyranny. This event marked the beginning of a significant split within Islam between Sunni and Shia branches, a division that continues to influence the Muslim world today. Despite the turmoil, the Rashidun Caliphate set the foundation for Islamic governance, law, and community life. It was an era defined by extraordinary military success, the spread of Islamic faith, and the establishment of institutions that would guide Muslims for centuries. The legacy of the rightly guided caliphs is still remembered with reverence as an example of leadership grounded in faith, justice, and service. As the Rashidun era came to an end, the Muslim world was ready for a new chapter that would bring both further expansion and new challenges. The stage was set for the Umayyad Caliphate, a dynasty that would transform the political landscape of the Islamic world and extend its reach far beyond what had been imagined. Following the tumultuous era of the Rashidun Caliphate, the Umayyad dynasty emerged to rule from 661 CE to 750 CE, marking a pivotal shift in Islamic history. The Umayyads were originally a powerful family from the Quraysh tribe, the same tribe as Prophet Muhammad, but their rise to power brought both expansion and controversy. Unlike the Rashidun caliphs, who were chosen through consultation and consensus, the Umayyad leadership became more hereditary and centralized, transforming the caliphate into a sprawling empire ruled by a dynastic monarchy. Under the Umayyads, the Islamic Empire experienced its greatest territorial expansion. Their armies pushed westward across North Africa, crossing into the Iberian Peninsula, modern-day Spain and Portugal, and moving eastward into Central Asia and the Indian subcontinent. This vast empire connected diverse peoples and cultures, creating a network that linked Europe, Africa, and Asia. Cities like Damascus became dazzling centers of political power, culture, and commerce, serving as the new capital of the empire. The Umayyad rulers adopted administrative reforms that helped manage this sprawling territory. They introduced Arabic as the official language of government and bureaucracy, unifying the empire through a shared language. They built impressive infrastructure, including roads, mosques, and palaces, which showcased Islamic art and architecture. However, their rule was not without criticism. Many Muslims felt the Umayyads prioritized political power and wealth over the spiritual ideals of Islam. The Umayyads often favored Arab Muslims and marginalized non-Arab converts, creating social divisions and tensions within the empire. Religious scholars and dissenting groups challenged the Umayyads, accusing them of corruption and moral decay. The Shia faction, which supported the descendants of Ali, remained in opposition, rejecting the Umayyad claim to the caliphate. This ongoing conflict fueled political instability and rebellion across the empire. Among these dissenters was the Abbasid family, who claimed descent from the Prophet's uncle and positioned themselves as champions of justice and true Islamic leadership. Despite these tensions, the Umayyad period left a lasting legacy. It spread Islam into new lands, integrating it with local customs and traditions, and laying the foundation for a vibrant Islamic civilization. The Umayyad caliphs promoted trade and scholarship, encouraging advancements in science, philosophy, and the arts. The famous Great Mosque of Damascus and other architectural wonders stand as testaments to their reign. However, dissatisfaction with Umayyad rule eventually led to their downfall. In 750 CE, the Abbasid revolution overthrew the Umayyads, marking the end of the dynasty and the beginning of a new era. Many Umayyad family members were killed, but one prince escaped to Spain and established the Emirate of Cordoba, where Umayyad culture and influence continued to flourish. The Umayyad Caliphate was a period of great complexity, characterized by extraordinary growth, but also deep challenges. It set the stage for the Abbasid era, which would bring a new vision of Islamic leadership and a flourishing of intellectual and cultural achievements. The Abbasid Caliphate began in 750 CE after the overthrow of the Umayyad dynasty, ushering in a new chapter in Islamic history marked by cultural flourishing, scientific advancement, and political change. The Abbasids claimed descent from Abbas, the uncle of Prophet Muhammad, and presented themselves as champions of a more inclusive and just leadership compared to the Umayyads. Their rise to power was supported by various groups dissatisfied with Umayyad rule, including non-Arab Muslims and Shia factions eager for reform. The Abbasid Caliphate moved the capital from Damascus to Baghdad, a city that would become a beacon of learning and culture for centuries. Baghdad, founded on the banks of the Tigris River, was designed to be a grand metropolis with wide streets, bustling markets, libraries, palaces, and mosques. It quickly became the intellectual and cultural center of the Muslim world, attracting scholars, poets, philosophers, and scientists from across Asia, Africa, and Europe. This era is often called the Golden Age of Islam. The Abbasids sponsored remarkable advancements in fields such as medicine, mathematics, astronomy, and philosophy. Scholars translated and preserved ancient Greek and Roman texts, while also making original contributions that would influence later civilizations. Figures like Al-Khwarizmi, the father of algebra, and Ibn Sina, a renowned physician, emerged during this time, pushing the boundaries of human knowledge. The caliphs themselves often acted as patrons of the arts and sciences, supporting institutions such as the House of Wisdom, where scholars gathered to share ideas and translate important works. Poetry and literature also flourished, reflecting the diverse cultures within the empire. This period was characterized by intellectual curiosity and a spirit of inquiry that transcended religious and ethnic lines. However, the Abbasid Caliphate also faced internal challenges. Governing such a vast and diverse empire was difficult, and over time, the central authority weakened. Various regions gained autonomy, and local rulers often acted independently. The empire faced invasions from external forces, including the Mongols, who famously sacked Baghdad in 1258 CE, ending the Caliphate's political dominance. Despite the political decline, the cultural and intellectual legacy of the Abbasids endured. Their contributions shaped Islamic civilization and left an indelible mark on world history. The Abbasid era demonstrated how faith, knowledge, and governance could intertwine to create a flourishing society. As the political power of the Abbasids waned, new Islamic empires rose in different parts of the world, each contributing uniquely to the rich tapestry of Islamic history. The story of Islam did not end with the Abbasids, but continued to evolve and adapt through the centuries. As the Abbasid Caliphate's political control gradually weakened, the influence of Islam continued to grow and spread far beyond the borders of the early Islamic empires. From the 8th century onward, Islam expanded into new regions through trade, conquest, missionary work, and cultural exchange. This period marked a significant transformation as Islam became a truly global religion, shaping societies from West Africa to Southeast Asia. One of the key factors in Islam's spread was the extensive trade networks connecting the Muslim world to distant lands. Muslim merchants traveled along the Silk Road and maritime routes, bringing not only goods like spices, textiles, and precious metals, but also ideas, beliefs, and cultural practices. Through peaceful interactions and intermarriage, many communities gradually embraced Islam, attracted by its teachings and the social and economic benefits of being part of the Muslim world. In West Africa, Islam spread primarily through trade and the influence of powerful empires such as Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. Cities like Timbuktu became renowned centers of Islamic scholarship and culture, home to impressive universities and libraries. The famous Malian ruler Mansa Musa, a devout Muslim, famously made a pilgrimage to Mecca, displaying the wealth and piety of West African Islam to the wider world. In South Asia, Islam arrived through multiple routes, including Arab traders along the western coast of India, and later through Turkish and Mongol invasions. The Delhi Sultanate and the Mughal Empire played major roles in establishing Islamic governance and culture in the region. The blending of Islamic and local traditions gave rise to unique art, architecture, and cuisine, enriching the cultural landscape. Southeast Asia also witnessed the peaceful spread of Islam via traders and Sufi missionaries. Countries such as Indonesia, Malaysia, and the southern Philippines embraced Islam over centuries, making Indonesia today the country with the largest Muslim population in the world. The incorporation of Islam into local customs and governance shaped the religious and social life of these regions deeply. In addition to trade, the missionary efforts of Sufi mystics were crucial. Their emphasis on personal spirituality, tolerance, and devotion resonated with diverse populations, helping bridge cultural divides and making Islam accessible to a wide range of people. Sufi orders established networks of learning and worship that fostered community and education. While the caliphates declined politically, the spread of Islam created vibrant, interconnected societies united by faith, but diverse in culture and practice. The global expansion of Islam also set the stage for new empires, intellectual movements, and religious developments that would continue to influence world history. This expansion was not without challenges, including resistance, conflict, and adaptation. Yet the resilience and adaptability of Islamic civilization allowed it to thrive across continents, shaping art, science, politics, and spirituality. Following the decline of the Abbasid Caliphate, a new and powerful Islamic empire rose to prominence, the Ottoman Empire. Founded around the end of the 13th century by a small Turkish principality in Anatolia, the Ottomans grew from modest beginnings into one of the most influential empires in history. Spanning over 6 centuries, from roughly 1299 to 1924, the Ottoman Empire played a crucial role in shaping the political, cultural, and religious landscape of the Muslim world and beyond. The Ottomans expanded their territory steadily, conquering lands in the Middle East, North Africa, and Southeast Europe. Their most famous conquest came in 1453, when Sultan Mehmed II captured Constantinople, the capital of the Byzantine Empire. This event marked the end of the medieval era and established Istanbul as a new imperial capital, strategically positioned between Europe and Asia. Istanbul became a vibrant center of trade, culture, and Islamic learning, symbolizing the empire's wealth and power. The Ottoman rulers combined military strength with a sophisticated administrative system to govern their vast and diverse domains. They embraced a form of Islamic governance known as the Caliphate, claiming spiritual authority over Muslims worldwide. The sultans were both political leaders and defenders of the faith, supporting religious institutions, scholars, and the arts. One of the Ottoman Empire's hallmarks was its ability to manage diversity. The empire ruled over many different ethnic and religious groups, including Christians, Jews, and various Muslim sects. Through a system called the millet, communities were allowed to govern themselves according to their own laws and traditions, fostering relative stability and coexistence. Culturally, the Ottomans made significant contributions to architecture, literature, music, and science. The majestic mosques designed by architects like Mimar Sinan stand as lasting monuments to Ottoman artistry. Literature flourished, blending Persian, Arabic, and Turkish influences, while scholars contributed to medicine, astronomy, and philosophy. Despite its power, the Ottoman Empire faced challenges including military defeats, internal rebellions, and pressure from European powers. By the 19th and early 20th centuries, it was known as the sick man of Europe, struggling to maintain its territories and modernize its institutions. The empire's involvement in World War I ultimately led to its dissolution. In 1924, the Caliphate was officially abolished by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the founder of modern Turkey, marking the end of centuries of Ottoman political and religious authority. However, the legacy of the empire remains profound, shaping the history and culture of the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe. The Ottoman Empire was a powerful force that preserved and transformed Islamic civilization during a period of global change. Its story is one of conquest, cultural richness, religious leadership, and adaptation over centuries. The modern era of Islam is a story of transformation, challenge, and renewal as Muslim societies grappled with the forces of colonialism, nationalism, modernization, and globalization. Beginning in the 18th and 19th centuries, the Islamic world faced significant upheaval as European powers expanded their empires into Muslim-majority regions, reshaping political boundaries and introducing new ideas and technologies. Colonial rule affected many parts of the Muslim world, including North Africa, the Middle East, South Asia, and Southeast Asia. European powers such as Britain, France, and Russia controlled vast territories, disrupting traditional governance structures and economies. Muslim leaders and thinkers responded in varied ways, from resistance and rebellion to attempts at reform and adaptation. The challenge was to reconcile Islamic traditions with modernity and Western influences. One of the major responses to this period was the rise of Islamic reform movements. Thinkers like Jamal al-Din al-Afghani and Muhammad Abduh called for a return to the original principles of Islam while embracing science, education, and rationalism. These reformers believed that Islam could provide answers to the problems facing Muslim societies if reinterpreted in light of contemporary realities. Their ideas influenced movements across the Muslim world, inspiring efforts to revive Islamic identity and culture. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire after World War I marked a major turning point. New nation-states emerged, often with secular governments that separated religion from the state. This shift led to tensions between secular nationalism and Islamic political movements. Countries like Saudi Arabia, founded in the early 20th century, established states based on Islamic law, while others adopted more secular or mixed models. In the mid to late 20th century, the Islamic world saw significant political and social changes. The Iranian Revolution of 1979 was a defining moment, establishing an Islamic republic and inspiring political Islam movements worldwide. Meanwhile, organizations such as the Muslim Brotherhood gained prominence in various countries, advocating for governance based on Islamic principles. Globalization has brought both opportunities and challenges for Muslims today. Increased communication and migration have created vibrant Muslim communities around the world, contributing to multicultural societies. At the same time, issues such as political conflicts, extremism, and Islamophobia have affected perceptions and experiences of Islam globally. Throughout this modern era, Islam has continued to adapt, influencing arts, sciences, politics, and daily life. The story of Islam is one of resilience and diversity, with millions of people around the world finding meaning and identity in its teachings. The history of Islam from its earliest beginnings to the present day shows a complex and dynamic faith that has shaped and been shaped by the world around it. This journey is ongoing, full of challenges and hopes for the future. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive into Islamic history. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe for more fascinating stories from history, mythology, and culture.